Good morning and welcome. You are tuned in and listening to Back Talk with Sharona. I am your host. My name is Sharona. As always, I thank you for tuning in. It is a did I say bitter, sweet show today? The topic of today's show is going to primarily revolve around journalism. A lot going on in the journalism business. We'll talk a little bit about the remake of the Salon website. We'll talk about what happened with the Daily Beast and their unwise, I suppose is the best word I can come up with. Despicable might be another. Unwise decision to think that, I mean, can't we just let people live? I mean, they decided to do a story about Grinder, which I didn't even know was a thing, and in the process, they outed some gay athletes and possibly put their lives and careers in jeopardy. And it was just a bad look all around. We'll talk a little bit about that. And we are going to pour one out for Gawker Media. If you've been, and I'm already I told you guys I was going to cry on air. If you've been following me for any length of time, you know that that I read many of the Gawker websites. The top three are probably Kotaku, Deadspin, and of course Jezebel. And so it's a sad day for independent journalism in general, and for me in particular, because I do think that it will continue on, but it'll never be the same. And of course, all of this has been necessitated by the Hulk Hogan lawsuit, the subsequent trial, and the verdict that was rendered in that case, and the resulting bankruptcy that has been filed now by the owner and CEO Nick Denton, as well as the managing editor AJ Delario. We'll touch upon that in the last half of the show. When I set the show up originally, I set it up for 2 hours. Not thinking, because we did a 2-hour show on Wednesday, and we've introduced a new quickie podcast called Down and Dirty with Sharona. We did one of those on Monday. It's been busy. Football is back. Football was on last night. I got a chance to watch a little bit of it, not as much as I wanted to while I was working. So we'll have to do a roundup of that next week. But so it's been a busy week. I haven't gotten a lot of sleep. I'm tired. We'll go an hour and a half, and that'll probably be it for today. And then we'll be back next week. We'll do a Down and Dirty on Monday, and then we're going to be talking to Doug Moore, who is a contributor at Inside the Pylon, as I am, as well as Coach Daniel Seahorn from Black Sports Online, and he writes for, I'm going to have to get the name of that website. It's escaping me right now. My brain's not working this morning. But he writes about Texas football, college football. He's just a great guy, and I always enjoy so much chatting with him. So we'll get him on. We're going to talk about what's going on with Kevin Sumlin, Charlie Strong, and just news across the college football landscape. So a couple of big shows next week. We'll have to get our girl Jennifer Eakin back on soon, and some other people. We're going to work on getting some great guests for you guys. This morning, we'll be playing what is part 2 in my series with my good friend Matt Wood, Chopping It Up with Matt and Sharona. We sat down once again on Wednesday night and talked a little bit about politics and labels, and we talked a little bit about media and journalism. We'll talk some more about that, and we're going to touch upon privacy. Privacy is a big issue, particularly when you're talking about being online, having an online presence, and what have you. And that's a topic that's very important to both Matt and I. So we'll we'll sit down again next week and chop it up and bring you that segment as well. So let's go ahead and get started. John Oliver, who is so fantastic and does such a great job. Of course, he's a guy who started with The Daily Show, Jon Stewart and The Daily Show, and now has his own gig. And he did a great segment on journalism, which sort of sparked this conversation. Although we talk about journalism a lot here, it's it's an interesting time because uh, journalism, in particular print journalism, is very much undergoing a transition. It's a transitional period for journalism because print journalism is struggling to keep up uh, with changes, not just in technology, but changes in reader usage and what drives advertisement, what drives advertising dollars, and that segment by John Oliver touched upon all of that. It was really good. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, I can't recommend it enough. Not just if you're a journalist, but if you read any online journalism, if you care about journalism, if you care about news, if you care about the future of this country, because true journalism, in its purest form, really is so important. It really drives what what countries do and how politicians operate, and it's and how informed its citizenry is, and so I'm hopeful. I'm worried, but I'm hopeful that we will be able to to find the means to have uh, journalism that makes us proud, as well as the kind of journalism that that does drive those advertising dollars. We definitely live in the click generation. Clickbait is a thing, and because social media is a thing and such a huge thing, we uh, we tend to more often than not operate by way of likes and retweets and clicks, and we've talked about that a lot on this show, and there's nothing wrong with that. In a perfect world, you'd have an informed citizenry and good journalism and that, but it's still a struggle, as John Oliver so rightfully pointed out in his segment. You have to make a profit. I mean, companies have to make a profit, right? But how do you balance that when what drives your profit margin are people clicking on rat cat, the raccoon that looks like a cat? So it's there are no easy solutions, and I certainly don't have any. But I think it's a great conversation. It's a conversation that we must have. It's a conversation that's important. So hopefully we'll continue to have that. I mean, journalists and editors too. I had a conversation with a friend of mine on Twitter this week about editors. Journalists and editors are overworked and underpaid, and a lot of times it's a thankless job. It's a dangerous job if you're paying attention to, speaking of politics and the elections, if you're paying attention to what's going on. Journalists who are covering Donald Trump's campaign are, one journalist in particular just had to be, just simply for doing her job, had to be escorted back to her vehicle following her coverage of a Donald Trump rally, because he was unhappy with her reporting about him. And as he tends to do, he incited his followers to harass and threaten her. And the Secret Service had to follow her, protect her to her car. So it's a dangerous job, too. and it's always investigative journalism has carried with that. If you know anything about the history of journalism, you know that there are journalists who have been killed in the line of duty while covering wars and you know various other things that carry with it a dangerous component to it. But it's such an important job. It's important to have an informed populace to inform readers, not just to cater to readers, to inform readers. That is an important function of journalism, and it's that part of it that concerns and troubles me the most, that we might lose, and we're already sort of losing that informative aspect of it by catering. Access carries with it the desire to maintain that status, and so you do get people who, because they want to keep their access, maintain their access, they will cater to the people that they are reporting on in order to do that. And you understand the pressures that are involved there, right? I mean, I can certainly understand that. Yet on the other hand, being independent, being objective, and reporting things as they are, not as the team or the candidate or the company wants it to be. And it's definitely it's very interesting. There was in that John Oliver segment, there was a clip shown of a guy who had purchased, I believe it was the Oregonian. He thankfully no longer owns it, but I'm not sure the new ownership is all that better. But he was talking about journalistic arrogance and basically saying that they were going to cover puppies over Iraq, which is just asinine and insane. But puppies drive clicks and advertising dollars, and you can understand his point that he wants to be able to afford journalists, so he has to have people that cover that. Again, in a perfect world, you would have that balance, right? You would have both. You would have journalistic integrity as well as the fun stuff. But I don't know. At some point, are we going to have to pay for journalism? I'm very resistant to that, just like I'm resistant to paying for social media, to paying for Twitter. We talked about that on a show not too long ago. Free's good, right? I mean, journalism's not the only industry that's seeing shrinking wages and less job opportunities. I mean, we're adding jobs, there's no question, but I mean, there's a lot of competition in all aspects of the workplace and workforce, and so free's good, and we like free, but if you're going to get, I suppose the old adage, you get what you pay for, has some truth to it. And are we at some point going to have to pay for our journalism? We're already seeing that. I mean, there are paywalls, and I can't count the number of times I've gone out to look at something and have been, told that I can't see it without subscribing and what have you. And invariably I get mad. I'm like, I'm not gonna pay. But you know what? At some point we're gonna have to, I think, and I'm resistant to it as much as anybody. But it. I think it's going to be a thing. So, all right. So, this Daily Beast thing. So, first of all, there was definitely a breakdown in the chain of command here, but this had to have been assigned, right? Somebody assigned. I'm sure it was pitched. If you're familiar with how these things operate, it was pitched, and I am assuming that the people involved in that pitching process were like, "Oh yeah, rah, good, go do this," which raises questions. What were they thinking when this story was pitched and it was approved? Yet it did get approved, and uh, so this reporter went out and I'm sorry about the peanut gallery there. This reporter went out and signed up for Grinder, which I suppose is a meeting place, much like Tinder for people who engage in want to meet up with and hook up with members of the same sex or whatever. I've never been on Grinder. I didn't even know Grinder was a thing until this. I'm generally aware of Tinder. I don't Tinder. I'm not on any online dating sites. But I'm generally aware of these things. I found out about Grinder, signed up, and um, apparently by the time that I clicked on this, the Daily Beast had made the decision to take this article down. It went through a series of revisions, and ultimately it was taken down. But I didn't get to see the original article. I saw screenshots and what have you. But so this reporter did this and apparently reported on the people that responded and in the process outed some athletes, painting this reporters over in Rio reporting on the Olympics, and outed some athletes, and it's wrong to do that. There's I, I mean, this is not debatable. It's wrong to out someone, but you know what? In a more general sense, it's wrong to. I mean, these people. I know that they're athletes, and in that sense, that kind of puts them in the public arena. I've always been uncomfortable with how much we want to poke and pry um, into certain things. Now, there are, when it comes to, things that are, to me, a pertinent interest, like, is someone, are they beating their wife? Are they beating their partner, their domestic partner? Are they, we could spend a whole show, and we should spend a whole show talking about PEDs, performance enhancing drugs, and how worthy that is anymore. And I know people disagree with me on that. I don't necessarily have a problem with regulating these things, but that we're very hypocritical about our drug policies in sports. When you look at, I believe it's still pending. I need to look this up, but I believe it's still pending. There's a lawsuit, and some athletes have come out and talked about how openly and freely, pain medications, opiates are available. Teams give them out like candy for their athletes, and I talk about this a lot. But Jason Taylor very famously, shared some of the details of what he went through in order to stay on the field. And there are stories like that all over the place. I mean, what athletes do to train and stay healthy and stay on the field, and they're competitive in their respective sports, is not always pretty. In fact, a lot of times it's not very pretty. And to me, how can we say that that's okay, and then deny them the opportunity to perhaps take things that help them recover more quickly, that as in the discussion about marijuana, weed. There are some studies that indicate that it helps with cognitive problems. It certainly can help with some other issues as well. Yet we're still we still test for that. We still have a problem letting go of that stigma associated with that. And so it's To me, it's hypocritical but back to the privacy aspect of it, there was simply no reason for them to ever think that this was a story. It's not a story. It's voyeurism at its finest. And, to their credit, and we'll talk about this in the last 30 minutes of the show when we turn to Gawker and when I cry over losing my beloved Jezebel. But to their credit, they did what Gawker did not do. First of all, so they pulled the story. Ultimately, it took them a while. They pulled the story and they apologized. And I've got the article up. Let me pull it up and mention some of the things from it. It's a note from the editors, and it starts out with saying that they took the unprecedented. I can't talk this morning. Unprecedented but necessary step of removing this particular article, and it goes on to it's a nice apology in my opinion. I thought it was a nice apology, and listen, I know that the Daily Beast has some problems, and I know people have issues with them, and I understand completely all of that. Today's show we're not going to really delve all that deeply into. We might on another show. We simply just have too much to talk about, but it's a good example of doing the right thing, even though clearly they were forced to. They were forced to do this, by public pressure, and but they did the right thing, and I know the cynical in us wants to say, well, yeah, they were forced to. It doesn't. No, I mean, listen, people should do the right thing. So what? Most people do get to do the right thing. I mean, doing the right thing isn't inherent in all of us. I don't know. When you make a mistake, sometimes, sometimes there is blindness. Sometimes it's willful blindness. But when you make a mistake and it gets pointed out to you, you should apologize. Maybe you're forced to. Maybe, you're forced to see your own blindness. But you should apologize for it. And, so they did what Gawker did not do, and they apologized for it. They pulled this article, and we'll see what will there be any lawsuits over this? I don't know. I suppose we'll see, but it was good that they did that. It was definitely a necessary thing for them to do. And so kudos to them for that. The salon thing, let's touch upon the salon thing just real quick, and then we're going to play the chopping it up segment with Matt, where we sat down and chit-chatted on Wednesday night. Salon, big changes at Salon, and this is very much in line with what John Oliver was talking about in his segment. They are going through... This is really troubling. They've ousted their former CEO, and they have a new CEO, Jordan Hoffner, who's revamping things, planning to cut down on the website's political writing, and they're moving toward the click generation, right? I mean, this is exactly what John Oliver was talking about. I'm reading straight from the Politico article. Plan to cut down on the site's political writing and instead direct resources toward culture, business, and lifestyle writing. So I think we're going to lose a valuable... you're already starting to see some of that, but we're going to lose a valuable resource in informative journalism. And what we're going to see is more clickbait stuff, more... I don't particularly have a problem with... They've added what this article terms to be a conservative right-wing person. I don't really have a problem with a website or a media company presenting alternate opinions. I think that is good. I think that having diversity is a good thing, and the more diverse culture you have, the more varying viewpoints you have, the more informed your citizenry is. And I don't always agree with some of the things that I see that are written, but if you don't pay attention to what we need to pay attention to what people are saying who do disagree with us. And, but there's definitely a way to do it and a way not to do it. I don't mind people disagreeing with me. It's how you approach it. It's how you drive that conversation. That's what really concerns me. And so, but it's going to be interesting to see what Salon does become. It's, the more access we have to news and to reporting, true reporting and investigative journalism and what have you, the better. And I hate to see the shrinking of the news business that we are seeing, because I do think, particularly now when you see what's going on with Donald Trump and with his supporters, now more than ever, we need an informed citizenry. The dumbing down of America is just so troubling to me, and we definitely need access to those things. So, maybe sometime soon we'll be pouring one out for Salon, although I will admit that I don't read Salon nearly as much, not even remotely nearly as much as I have read sites such as the Gawker websites or any number of Vice, any number of other websites. So that's kind of sad. I'm really, really sad to see that, but it's just one of many trends that we're seeing in journalism. And again, if you haven't had an opportunity to watch John Oliver's segment, it definitely is. It's eye-opening. It is important. You should watch it, and you should watch his show. He does a fantastic job, and you should also watch Samantha Bee and her fantastic show, Full Frontal, which is so good. We're going to have to devote a show to. We've talked a little bit about her work and what she does. We're going to have to have another show about that, but today's not going to allow that. All right, so we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be playing my little sit-down chit-chat with Matt Wood, chopping it up with Matt and Sharona. We talk about politics. We talk about a number of things, so stay tuned in. You are listening to Back Talk with Sharona. All right. Well, welcome back. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I am your host. My name is Sharona. By the way, you can follow me out there in Twitter sphere at Sports by Sharona. And you can follow Matt, by the way, at Woodstock. It's W, these are all lower cap letters, W 2 zeros D Stock. And he's a great guy, so smart. I always come away from I say this so much, but I always come away from our conversations feeling like I have learned something. We'll play that segment. And then when we come back, we said we're going to pour one out for Gawker. In true Sharona style, I'm actually sitting here drinking a Bloody Mary. So by the time we come back from that interview, I should be good and goosed up and ready to cry and wail, and we'll talk a little bit about that situation. I'll give you some of my thoughts on how that whole thing went down, and we'll pour one out for Gawker. So up next, here's Matt. All right, welcome back. Welcome to Installment 2, Episode 2 of Chopping It Up with Matt and Sharona. It was fun last week sitting down with my buddy Matt Wood and talking about politics and political labels, and we're going to continue that discussion We are recording this once again on Wednesday night. This is for the Friday podcast, and the Friday podcast is sort of dedicated to Goodbye to Gawker. We're going to pour one out Friday morning for the death of media, for journalism as we know it. There was a great segment by the fantastic John Oliver talking about media and journalism, and very interesting article about Salon when I sent that stuff to Matt. We'll get his thoughts on that. But we're going to sort of pick up where we left off with our discussion about politics and labels and elections 2016. And, Matt, I feel like we sort of ran a little bit short on time last time. So I wanted to give you an opportunity, first of all, to introduce yourself again and to tell everybody, a little bit about who you are, and then if there's anything you didn't feel like you got a chance to say last week, I want to give you an opportunity to do it.
Hey, yeah, no problem. Once again, I'm Matt. Work here in Nashville, software developer. Been down here for the past 6 years, originally from Michigan. So did 6 years in the Air Force. And
okay.
Before that, I was just a speck of dust on the wind.
So did your job bring you to Tennessee, or did a woman bring you here? How'd you get here?
Oh, technically a woman brought me here. It was my wife. No, but no, I got out of the Air Force, and it was just at the height of the Great Recession, and Michigan was one of the hardest hit states.
Okay.
Yeah. So
where about in Michigan?
Grand Rapids area.
Okay, yeah.
And so a lot of manufacturing is in Michigan.
Yeah.
So really couldn't find a job or anything. I was going to school to be a developer anyways, and I decided, well, I need a job, in the meantime, unemployment is only going to run so far.
Yeah.
So my wife's parents live down here.
Okay.
They're not originally from here either. They're from other places as well.
Okay.
And so we figured, well, if we're going to move, go someplace where there's someone close, and just in case anything bad happens, things don't work out or whatever. Well, you just don't want to be stranded, somewhere where you're not really familiar with. So we came down here, and then about a month or two after we moved down here, I got a job at a assisted facility center. I still have the GI Bill going to school, so that helped pay the rent and everything, and the job helped pay all the other bills. And then I did that for about a year and a half, and then got a job doing some quality assurance for Xerox, and they were working on a project with the state for a while, and then that project came and went, and then I lucked out and trying to get my first developer job, and got an awesome job with a pretty cool company. They provided the health care for the inmate population.
Okay.
That's what the company did. I worked on their I guess their electronic charts and stuff.
Okay.
Making that application. And now I'm with a different company, still in healthcare, and it's pretty fun. Every day is a new set of challenges and problems, and I get to figure out how to solve them. Usually, I get some input from some other folks because, just like most occupations, everything's a team. So while you may be doing individual work, it's on the big picture thing, it's a whole team. So it's best to be collaborative with your practices.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The more input, usually the better. Although you can get too many cooks in the kitchen. All right, so we started this discussion. We've still got plenty of time before election 2016, and we're going to try to make this a series. So, and I know that you felt like you didn't share completely your thoughts. Was there anything that sticks out in your mind that you wanted to to follow up on, or do you want to just?
Oh yeah, just one thing of where where we get into that whole liberal conservative thing, yeah. And where there is a lot of crossover, not so much on that linear scale that we're talking about, but on the grid. You have folks who are pro-choice but vote Republican because of the economic ideals.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have somebody who probably hates gay people, but is on their side in the way because they don't feel that a government has a role in, uh, in legislating that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you have liberals who are very much about social justice, but their economic policies may be, well, we need a more conservative approach, or some people who their economics are very liberal, but feel that the state should have a lot more control. I mean, there's in the age of social media and hot takes and
Right.
talking heads on news, don't shelter yourself into your home or apartment or what have you. When I lived in England for 3 years while I was with the Air Force, and one of the I'd go down to the pub. I would just talk to the guy next to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this guy could.
I love to do that. I love to just get out and talk to people.
You get a very wide perspective, and it's it's just with a lot of these political ideals or our thoughts on social justice or economics and stuff, there's an overlap, and there's not really everything's black and white in terms of things. I mean, you can be a very
yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, even now as we talk with this election, I was reading an article this morning. I'm not sure if it was New York Times, Washington Post, Huffington Post. They're all out there. And it was talking about, now we have the trend term now of quitting Republicans.
Now, are you playing Jack in the Box?
No, I'm sorry.
I'm just curious. I've got this picture. I've got this mental image of you because I can hear the music in the background.
Now, there is the complex I live in. There is a ice cream truck.
Oh, it's an ice cream. Now I want ice cream.
That comes through here about 3 times a day, all year round, mind you. Christmas, they're out there. Thanksgiving, they're out there.
Okay. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was like, are you playing Jack? Did you remember those wind-up Jack in the Box things?
Oh, yeah.
So kind of what it sounded like. And
yeah, I'm surprised that that's picking that up. That's a bit.
Yeah, no, I can hear it. So no, I completely agree, though. And that's why I want to have this discussion, because these labels and generalizations that we want to assign to things are not accurate. Not always. They're overbroad is probably the best way to put it.
Oh yes, yeah, and I mean, you can blame a two-party system or the media or however you want to put it, but it does get presented to us as like, hey, there's only Republicans and Democrats, and that's where you fall. If you want social justice issues, you better vote Democrat. And if you're a Republican, or if you're just someone who maybe isn't big on social justice, but has, you're kind of like, you want like these strong economic policies, and you're just like, oh, better vote Republican, even though I don't agree with the social justice issues. I mean, it's.
I think that we all have those issues that are. We tend to stack, if that makes any sense. We stack issues to the level of, importance to least importance, and, probably, maybe 1 out of, 6 or 7 people have, maybe not even that, stack them the same way, if that makes any sense.
And then you have, single issue voters. There's one person,
Oh, yeah.
I don't like abortion. That's the only issue I care about. So I'm going to vote for the party that's against abortion. Or
but it's weird though, because and it does seem very common, and I know it's not a complete generality, but those people also tend to be anti-government, anti-big government, but they're completely and totally okay with the government, regulating my womb, my vagina. And so, anyway, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's where,
and they're pro-death penalty, which is completely and utterly not pro-life.
Oh yeah, there were. I mean, George Carlin had a bit on it.
Oh yeah.
Where I mean, this was in the early '90s, where he said, they're not pro-life, they're anti-woman. But because it was going, he was given specifics. He's like, well, when, how far are you going to take this back? I mean, if they have a menstruation, I mean, that's hundreds of eggs gone right there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's definitely like a lot of overlap, and and now you have the trend now that's coming about is this Clinton Republican, all these Republicans that are siding with Clinton, maybe, and they may not even vote for it. They just say, in terms of, which one could be a better president, it'd probably be Clinton, from their point of view, which is very reminiscent of the 80s, where you had the Reagan Democrats, where it's like, hey, I'm Michael Dukakis, he got on that tank. I don't know how I feel about that. Better vote for Reagan. So I mean, and that just goes to show you, is like, it's not black and white. It's, last election, the military is usually perceived in their political views as heavily conservative, and to an extent, that's correct. But
that's probably one generalization that's more correct than most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yet, out at my polling station in 2012, you had a sign that said veterans and military members for Obama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm thinking with the spread of information nowadays, a person's political views are becoming less and less defined by what, I guess, how society presents it.
Yeah. Well, I think they're becoming less and less defined by party lines, and more defined by other things.
Oh yeah. And I guess that kind of gets into a whole aspect of hey, you have these Trump voters and these Bernie Sanders voters. How are they so popular?
Mm-hmm.
And you have this issue of wealth inequality.
Mm-hmm.
You had in the demographics in Bernie Sanders and Trump voters are almost identical in the demographic, not like ideology. Just you had these. Let's see. Let me grab this article. I have it right here because it nicely pointed it out. You have these. The groups are heavily white, more male than female, and in both candidates are people who are against kind of like their establishment of their party. Except Bernie Sanders is an independent. He was not, a party Democrat. But
no, absolutely not.
So then you had this, you have the recession. You have all this sorts of wealth inequality. You have Sanders supporters who, part of that Occupy movement and everything, and they feel that both candidates can't be bought. Sanders relies on, small contributions from people. He always has, supposedly. And then you have Trump, who's supposed to be a millionaire, doesn't take donations from super PACs, but he'll take it from you. Yeah. So they're not beholden to this system. So that really gets a lot of people charged up. And then, you have Bernie Sanders going, hey, Wall Street and the bank screwed you. This is what's going on. You need better wages, with better working conditions that will, pour money into the economy. While Trump supporters, on the other hand, and not all Trump supporters or not all Bernie Sanders supporters, let me just say that, because I'm sure I'll get an angry tweet. It's, oh, hey, you got fired from your job at the factory. But this immigrant over here is picking apples with a job and having Pizza Hut tonight. That has nothing to do, in the sense of you losing your job at the factory. But people are crazy. It's all these other things too, where when the recession happened, a lot of people were pissed off with the bank bailout thing, and that was across all lines.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people were saying like, hey, why do you give the money to the bank? Why don't you just give it to the people that are struggling, which in turn will help the bank? And nobody fails. right? But that didn't happen. So, okay, hey, we bailed out the banks. Which, I mean, I get it, you got rid of all the antitrust, a lot of the antitrust laws and regulations, so these banks became larger. But so we bail them out, and then it's like, hey, what about us? Now we don't have a home, we don't have a job, and I mean there was plenty of jobs where you could, they were trying to get stuff for roads and bridges and things to fix the infrastructure, but that was like a drop in the bucket to what was actually needed. And then, I mean, you could have had free market solutions, like Comcast could have put fiber across the whole damn country. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying slave wages or anything, but they could have probably gotten cheaper labor in terms of the American populace. Maybe not minimum wage, but probably cheaper than what they have to pay a technician now, to lay all sorts of fiber, boost everybody's speeds up. And that would have put a lot of people to work. And I'm not saying everybody's house would have been saved and things like that, but I mean, now you have Google going, hey, we're going to do it. Now Comcast is trying to fight lawsuit and everything to stop them from doing it. It's like, I mean, they had a natural advantage to poke into a new market and, expand from there, but they didn't. Kind of like how Sears should have been Amazon, but hey, I guess it's better to print catalogs.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about this media stuff, and I don't want us to run short of time. We're going to keep. This is going to be a series. Matt's going to come back. We're going to continue this discussion. But I would be remiss if I did not ask you about the latest Trump comments regarding this. Yeah, regarding the Second Amendment and how the Republicans and his strategists are trying to spin that into something palatable, which it is not. What do you think?
So, yeah, that was just completely asinine. It's almost like, okay, so a couple days ago, everybody's telling him, you need to reboot. You need to shut your damn mouth. You need to act like somebody who gives a shit, And so he kind of does it. He goes to Detroit, unveils an economic plan, and then that was it. I mean, granted, that plan was torn apart from Elizabeth Warren to, folks in the media to all sorts of economic advisors, but that kind of was it. And I think there was like maybe about 12 to 13 minutes where nobody was talking about Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. And that's unacceptable. I mean, I think Donald Trump, I mean, that's part of it, right? He wants the attention. He wants the...
And that's the thing. I mean, I'm not saying he meant it. I mean, it's completely,
appropriate?
Yeah, it is completely inappropriate. But he says shit like this because guess what? Everybody freaking talks about it. Everybody tweets about it. Facebook shares it. Tweet at him. And
there was. In fact, I need to tweet this out again. I meant to do it earlier today because I talked about it on today's show. There was an interesting graph that crossed my timeline yesterday, I believe it was, and it was talking about how much television advertisement money has been spent, and Jill Stein is outspending Donald Trump, which is totally not surprising because he's getting all this free publicity.
Oh yeah, and
out here talking about Jill Stein.
Yeah, well, so the thing with third parties, which I'm all for, as much representation as possible. You find like 5 people that somehow are called a political party, and they hit every single one of your views. Yes, follow them, vote for them, and that's the thing. You got to vote for them. You can't just freaking share a damn Facebook meme. You got to actually get out there and do the groundwork. And that's the thing, though, too. Like, a lot of these third parties, they're always there, but you only ever hear about them in presidential elections. Kind of like this, saviors for both sides. Well, the Libertarian is economically right-wing. A lot of their stuff is definitely less authoritarian. And, so you kind of get, people go, oh, you get all the social justice issues of the liberals and all the economic policies of conservatives. It's like, yes, but no. And then the Green Party, you kind of like, hey, we got all your economic policies and social justice issues of your liberal-minded folks. But the thing with like those third parties, obviously, yes, they're not getting media time, except Gary Johnson. He got 2 town hall meetings on CNN. I'm not sure Jill Stein's schedule. She gets a couple blurbs here every now and then. And you are not seeing their political ads. Maybe you might see a Jill Stein ad in a place that's more liberal. I'm not sure. I have yet to see one here. I haven't seen a Gary Johnson ad here, which I would assume I would have thought I would have seen a Gary Johnson ad, at least in Tennessee. And the things with it is like, okay, you vote for them for president. Guess what? You're not getting a whole Congress full of Greens or Libertarians. You're not even, you're not going to get any of that. So, I mean, if you want a third party, you have to start, hey, maybe this city councilman's Green or Libertarian, or, what was the one of the political parties in England, the Mad Hatter Looney Party.
Yeah.
You vote these guys into your city council or your mayors. Heck, if they're big enough, you get them as a representative or a senator, and you start building a base, because I mean, you're not going to get a third party that just swoops right in there.
I completely agree that third parties are wonderful and good, and it's democracy theoretically at its finest, except when a third party swoops in and gives you, somebody unpalatable, a split vote. And I don't, people just seem to be or maybe they're just disagreeing with me. I continue to think that a split vote is going to hurt Hillary Clinton far worse than Donald Trump. What do you think?
Well, it depends on what what is going on. I don't think so. You already have your Green supporters prior to this election. You already have that number. Then you have the Bernie supporters who, a third of them have said that they're not going to vote for Hillary. They're going to vote for Jill Stein.
Yeah.
So you still have 2/3 of Bernie Sanders supporters who are saying either I'm going to vote for Trump because that's a smart choice, and then
Lord, don't get me started.
and then you have them like either saying they're going to vote Hillary, or they're still staying independent, trying to scope out. Maybe they go Gary Johnson. Maybe they find a socialist candidate, or they find whatever they're looking for. Maybe they abstain from voting.
I've seen that. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, I can't, Donald Trump, no, never Trump, but I can't vote for Hillary, which, again, to me, hurts. I mean, that hurts Hillary and gives us more of a possibility of a Trump presidency.
But you would have to have more people, kind of turn out for not Hillary than not Trump. I mean, and you got prominent Republicans telling people, don't vote Trump. I mean, they're not saying vote Clinton. I mean, a few of them are. A few of them have said, I'm endorsing Clinton. I'm going to vote for him. Meg Whitman is one of them. And there's a few more. I mean, you just had 50 heads of the National Security Agency or former workers just say, screw this dude. Yeah. Now, granted, they didn't all say, hey, we're all voting for Hillary Clinton, but, I mean, that's pretty damning.
Yeah.
You're not seeing that on the Democrat side. I mean, they may protest or something on the Green Party or something, but you're not seeing, hey, us 50 people from the ACLU or AFL-CIO, are voting for, or are telling you not to vote for Hillary. And Trump also has a little bit of a spoiler effect. Now, this was in the news for about 10 minutes before he said some of them Second Amendment guys could figure it out. It's like you had this independent GOP candidate for president, specifically targeting Utah and the surrounding states. But the moment he made those comments, that kind of went on the back burner. We will hear something about him again soon. Yeah. Trump is severely disliked in Utah, and I don't see the state swinging over to Hillary, but he's severely disliked. And I mean, the GOP establishment's like, yeah, we got to get somebody out there. And I mean, I don't know how. So you remember from 2012 after Mitt Romney lost, and oh man, I'm not sure how long after, but they did an autopsy of their campaign and their party and everything, and said we need to be more inclusive and all that stuff. Well, I think they just said it to say, hey, we put it in paper, because that's obviously that was not represented at all.
Yeah.
By a lot of the candidates throughout the primary process, and now you have Trump. I mean, what are you going to say? We definitely, underlined, bolded, need to be more inclusive, and maybe watch out for megalomaniacs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it's on paper. I mean, you actually have to act on these things. And it's the same thing on the Democrat side. I mean, they put Bernie's campaign essentially into the party platform. And, I mean, hey, you said $15 an hour minimum wage. Now, whether they go for it or not, if anything happens, it'll probably get up to about 10 or 12. They'll call it a compromise. Everybody will wave their flags. You know, you talked about tuition in the party platform. I mean, these are some bold claims that, you know, a lot of those people are going to want to see at least attempted to be worked out. And if you don't, you know, if you're not acting on them and stuff, it's going to come around where you're like, well, I don't feel represented by this party. And, you know, they may not cross the aisle, but it's like, I'm not going to be voting for you, and that does hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. We've only got a few minutes left. Do you want to weigh in on the sort of I don't know if we can call it the main topic, but sort of the theme of the show is we're pouring one out for Gawker and the media, the John Oliver thing. We live in interesting media times.
Oh yeah, and I haven't seen the John Oliver video yet. I've been too wrapped up in the Olympics and telling people to stay away from cupping. It doesn't frickin' work.
Isn't that the craziest thing? I mean, my goodness.
And so I haven't seen that.
So much junk science coming out.
Gee, yeah. We can shelve that for the next episode.
Let's definitely do. Because I devoted like a good portion of today's show trying to debunk this whole flossing thing.
Yeah.
Because of course flossing is good.
Yeah. I mean, and John Oliver itself had a thing on scientific studies and why they run with a thing that is not even peer reviewed. You know, like back in 2006 or 7 with the whole, hey, vaccines cause autism. And everybody was like, what? And then all the scientists came out, no, it doesn't. But guess what? The damage has already been done.
I know. I mean, people read headlines, and I'm guilty of that. I mean, I put myself in that category, and they don't stop to think, you know?
Yeah, so, yeah. Next week, junk science and why Food Babe is an idiot.
Yeah, really. Yeah, let's do. I like it. Matt, it's always so much fun, and I apologize. We had a little bit of technical issues, so we got started late, but I appreciate, as always, your time, and I look forward to same time next week.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, absolutely awesome. So, all right, well, that's it for Chopping It Up with Matt and Sharona. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll try and wrap things up, so stay tuned in. You are listening to Back Talk with Sharona. All right. Welcome back. The moment of truth has arrived. Shout out to Matt for that. And I apologize. I don't know if you heard that little musical chime there, the Peanut Gallery, alive and well. We are broadcasting on location today. And fortunately, I was completely and utterly stressed about this. Fortunately, the construction has died down outside my window. I was like, oh my God. It started up like around 7:30 or so this morning, somewhere around there. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. This cannot be real life. But it's died down a little bit. So the Peanut Gallery has been fairly quiet this morning. Shout out to Matt for sitting down with me Wednesday night and continuing this conversation. And we're going to continue it, and we'll definitely need to address this junk science thing and follow up on the flossing thing, because I know that there's going to be a follow up to that, and flossing is going to get the credit that it's due. I would very much be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the women who are and men. Michael Phelps, of course, doing a great job, but I want to give a shout out to the women of the 2016 Olympic national team, the team that is representing us right now over in Rio, particularly to two young women who are shattering barriers and who are making us so proud. And last night, after I got through, I was watching, because I was busy and couldn't watch it. And well, you can't even say real time, right? It's kind of interesting how NBC is handling the Olympics. We'll have to talk about that. We'll devote a show to that. But to Simone Manuel, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Manuel. I hope that I'm at least somewhat close for her medal, as well as Simone Biles, who both of those young women are just so amazing and so fantastic, and so are the other women as well. But I want to give a shout out to them because what they are doing is just truly historic. Excuse me. And it just, it makes you so proud, with all the other problems that this country has, and with racism still being such a big thing. If you're paying at all any attention to Donald Trump and his campaign, you know that racism is alive and well in this country. And watching them compete and watching them do so well, just smash everything. And shout out to Katie Ledecky too. And those are just a few of the names, but it just makes me so emotional, and I couldn't be prouder to see them doing so well and getting the love and the attention that they deserve. So I suppose that's a great way to segue into this final segment, and I'm already choked up, so definitely crying on air is probably going to happen. It's going to be an option. All right, so let's pour one out for Gawker Media. That is, I believe today is today. It's going to be sold, and it's going to be sold because of a series of events. Yeah, I watched all that go down, and it was fascinating to me. We'll talk about that in a minute. But first of all, let me start by saying, if you know anything at all about me, you know that I am a devoted and regular reader of Jezebel. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, let me just talk a little bit about how I came across that website and what it meant to me as a woman who cares about other women, and who I openly identify as a feminist. I don't know why you wouldn't. It just really troubles me that word is so misunderstood and has such a negative connotation to it, and it's because we as we tend to do, we focus on on people who use it for for reasons that suit their own purposes. That's probably the best way to put that. But regardless, I openly identify as a feminist, which to me, feminism is all about equality, and not just equality for women, but equality across the board, which is why I believe in justice and equality, and those things are important to me. And so that's one of the reasons why we talk here, not just about women and equality, but other people and equality too, minorities, gay individuals, trans. Uh, Discrimination is bad and it's wrong and it's still going on, and we're still going to talk about it. So for me, when I first ran across Jezebel, and at the time, this was, oh, you know what? This has probably been about 10 years ago. Wow. I'm an old, you guys. Time certainly does fly. It was probably not, it was probably 8 years ago, but roughly 10 years ago, somewhere around 2008 or so, probably after I joined Twitter, is when I ran across it. And it was life changing for me. Um, and initially, my main focus was, even though I was a gamer at the time, I've been a gamer as long as I can really remember. But initially it was Jezebel and Deadspin that I spent the major part of my time on, and then Kotaku, and I go to IO9 and some of the others. Don't get me wrong; it's just those are the big ones that I would visit. But finding Jezebel was a true revelation because um, it affirmed to me some of the ideas and the feelings and the experiences, that as a woman that that I cared about and that I experienced. And it's always good when you find your people, right? And I don't agree. So diverse opinions are good. Let's say that again. Diverse opinions are good, and I don't agree with anything, with everything that is opined on there, that's posted about on there, that's blogged about on there. For the most part, I understand it, and I know where it's coming from, and I can relate to it and understand it. And it really was just like a life altering thing to find this community of women who cared about the same things that I cared about, and had the courage and the conviction to write about it. And it really encouraged me, um, because at the time, yeah, when you're a woman in a traditionally male oriented environment, male oriented profession, you're not encouraged to you're really not encouraged to to flout your feminism, or to openly advocate for things like equality for gay individuals. I mean, and this is a generalization. There are certainly niches in those areas that foster and allow that, but in general, it's difficult to do it. And so, finding that, it was, yeah, I mean, it was definitely like a life altering thing, and it really empowered me um, to feel like it was okay, to do those things. And so I've been reading Jezebel for years, and Deadspin too, which is different in that it has the same aura, if you will, of irreverency and boldness, and and what have you. That the Gawker websites, the Gawker Media websites, get a lot of flack for a lot of different things, but boldness is not one of them, and ultimately, that may have contributed in a way to the downfall. But I was just so amazed to to find Jezebel. And the great thing about Jezebel, and there'll probably never be another time like the golden age that we've seen. And I think the Gawker is going to go on, even though it won't be the same. It'll go on. It'll change. It was already changing for many of the reasons that we've been discussing today: clicks and advertising revenue and all of that. You were seeing changes, and with Kenja, with Kenja, and and some of the other things that they had rolled out. You had seen changes, but one of the great things about Jezebel is that it did spawn competitors and copycats, if you will. I don't. Yeah, maybe that's a good word to use. I don't know, but competitors is probably a better word. It taught us. It allowed us to have other avenues of exploring those topics, and that's good. It is good to have a free market society where there's competition like that. But there'll never be another Jezebel. We've already seen some of the beloved writers that I first started reading there have gone on to do other things, and there are new ones there. And one thing that you can say about Gawker, and I've tweeted out a few articles that sort of touch upon this. One thing that you can say is that it gave a generation of writers an opportunity to do something unique, and those writers have gone on to other websites, to other media groups, and their experience at Gawker and the writing that they did at Gawker made them better, and by definition, it made the websites and the other media groups that they went to, it made them better. And despite its faults, and we're getting ready to talk about those things, despite its faults, I do think that journalism in general owes a debt to Gawker for that, for that voice that Gawker sort of prided itself on snark and being being that media giant, that media company that wasn't afraid to thumb its nose and again, this is part of what I think ultimately led to where we are today. But we owe a debt of gratitude, whether you like it or not. If you're a news consumer at all, if you consume any sort of online news, you owe a debt of gratitude to them for that. And so, I'm happy to give them that due and to pour one out. So, all right. So, I don't know how I missed it. I didn't see the Hulk Hogan thing. Maybe it was there and I just glossed. I don't read everything, I mean, this is the great thing about a free market society. You're free to gloss over the things that don't interest you. And so I wasn't really aware. I didn't see if I saw the original Hulk. Maybe I did look at it and I just don't remember, which is entirely possible. But I didn't see the original Hulk Hogan post. Gawker published a sex tape that Hulk Hogan was in, and it, from what I gather, I don't think that if I've seen it, I don't remember it, which maybe doesn't say much about it. But from what I gather, Hulk Hogan has some issues of his own and is certainly not he's kind of an asshole. He's a bit of an asshole, right? A beloved asshole, I suppose, but he's got issues of his own, and he's made some racially charged statements, some racially derogatory statements, and so he's certainly no perfect princess himself. But Gawker did this and was asked to take it down, and from the reporting that I've seen and everything that I've read, was completely and utterly unrepentant about it and did not. And uh, uh, this lawsuit ensued. Now, the lawsuit was what made me aware of it for the first time, the fact that this had transpired, and that the decision was made not to take it down. And it's a great way to contrast what the Daily Beast did. My opinion, certainly feel free to disagree. To me, that was the first in a series of strategic missteps by the powers that be, the decision makers at Gawker. They should have taken it down. They should have did, even though forced to do so. Again, oftentimes we get forced to do things, either because we don't realize that we have, messed up, we fucked up, if you will, or B, because we're forced to. Doing the right thing is what it portends to be, what it says it is. You do the right thing, and then they didn't do that, and so this lawsuit. And I don't know why. I casually followed the proceedings. That certainly didn't. I watched a little bit of it. I watched enough to know that I wanted to somehow, some way, march myself in there, grab A.J. Delario by the ear, yank him outside, and say, "What in the absolute fuck are you doing?" Because if I have absolutely no problem saying and believing, and I am absolutely convinced this is true, it infuriated the jury, the stance and the tactic that they took. You do not get a jury verdict of this magnitude, and it was huge. It was huge. You do not get a jury verdict of this magnitude unless the jury completely and utterly despises your guts. And it was because they continued to take this unrepentant stand about the whole thing. And you don't want to admit liability. I get that. I understand that. But you also don't want to piss the jury off. And there's no question in my mind that they did that. They completely and utterly pissed that jury off. That jury, this award is because the jury hated them. Maybe they hated the attorney too. That certainly can factor into these things. It's, I wouldn't say it's a complete likability contest, but, and I know that Hulk Hogan has his own thing, right? But the judge had already told you that you weren't going to be able to show what an asshole Hulk Hogan was, right? And I know that had to make them mad. I know it did. That they weren't able to present that, to present him in his full light. But you can't ass hat someone in litigation and expect to win. And when you're talking about a situation like this, sometimes, and it did appear to me, I certainly don't have any insider information, it appeared to me that they were going for broke. They wanted to get a goose egg. It was, we don't think that we did anything wrong. This is our methodology, and he's not entitled to anything. Well, unfortunately, it just doesn't always work that way. And sometimes a win can be coming out with a monetary payment that you can live with. to me, the goal should have been live to blog another day, not we didn't do anything wrong. Let's risk everything, and ultimately, this is where we are. They risked everything, and now Gawker's going to be sold, and it's because it's because I think that I feel like they kind of got into a pissing contest with Hulk Hogan again, who's I mean, I understand how Hulk Hogan, this whole thing, and of course, we haven't even touched upon the fact that this entire lawsuit was bankrolled by someone who is mad at Gawker over some other things too, and litigation is expensive, and this guy, Peter Thiel, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but he bankrolled this lawsuit, which okay, wrong. It makes my skin crawl just to think about that, right? That this guy has his own agenda in doing it, but again, it doesn't, it does not negate the fact that, generally speaking, prying into what really what was newsworthy about this, I suppose. And when they were asked to take it down, if they had taken it down, we would not be sitting here having this discussion. And there were, and that's kind of the thing that's so sad to me, and that's so I don't want to say infuriating, but yeah, sad. Is that there were a number of steps along the way where we wouldn't have gotten here. We wouldn't have gotten here if they had taken the tactic. Well, these people that we're up against, sometimes the asshats win. Sometimes they do. Life's not fair. Sometimes the asshats win. Let's recognize that and live to blog another day. And but that didn't happen, and so we got this incredibly large jury verdict, and some good people are going to lose jobs, and we're going to lose the Gawker Media that so many of us enjoyed for the past, I don't know, how long have they been in business? 10 years, something like that. So, it's sad. So, I really hope that we'll at least, that we'll have some of what made those, those websites so great and so, so beloved by, and they were communities. I didn't really comment much there. Occasionally I would read the comments. You say never read the comments. I'm the world's worst to read the comments. And so, I would read the comments, and they really were communities, and whether you agreed or you disagreed with the commenters, you learn to recognize, the regulars and the people that did do that. And what, I can't count the number of times that I would read a comment on all of those websites, even the main Gawker blog, and not learn something, or not, come out of it thinking, wow, I hadn't really thought about that. That's a great point. And so it will retain at least some measure of that, what it's meant to, to the people who have enjoyed it for so long, and I hope that the writers and the editors and everyone involved in it, I hope that their jobs and their their livelihood aren't threatened too greatly by it, and and I hope that Nick Denton and AJ Delario have learned something from this, and maybe, and I know that right now things are probably not good for either one of them, financially, and I bet that they're still mad about this. How could you not be, right? How could you not be angry, that the asshat won? I'm sure that they are, but I think ultimately they'll be okay, and maybe at some point in the future we'll see something new. A new Gawker will emerge, a new independent news source with some of that. Again, if there's anything that you can take from this show, it's that the more access that we have to news and to opinions and investigative reporting and the things of that nature, the better. The more informed we are as Americans, as humans, the better. And journalism plays such a fundamental role in that. And so we live in interesting times when it comes to the subject of journalism. And let's be clear, there are so many wonderful people out there who remain committed to doing these things, and shout out to them for having that courage and for having that commitment and for the dedication and the sleepless nights and everything that goes into it. It's not an easy job. It's a tough job. It's a necessary job. Hug a journalist today. If you know a journalist, hug a journalist today, because it is definitely so crucial and so vital and so important. All right, so we managed to get through it. I kind of got choked up. I'm sure you guys could tell, but I didn't actually cry. I probably will when we get off. But I'm sad. Gosh, I'm so sad. I hope that we still, we still get access to them. So, all right. So that's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Matt, by the way, who came on and who sat down with me Wednesday night and was on this morning, and we talked a little bit about some of these things and politics. And also shout out to my buddy Kevin, who joined me on Wednesday's show talking fantasy football, and also to Greg Greenfield, who, despite his poor oral hygiene and his Pokemon Go, but you guys are going to make me play Pokemon Go, I can tell. You're going to make me poke, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But shout out to him. Always fun to talk to him. Greg, if you're listening out there, buddy, go floss. Flossing is good. We're going to completely debunk this notion that flossing is bad. So, again, we'll be back next week with a couple of shows, starting on Monday with Down and Dirty, and then probably another Wednesday, Friday show. Doug Moore and Daniel Seahorn both going to be. I'll be sitting down with them over the course of the next few days, and we'll get their thoughts on some things going on in the sport. In the sports world. I had the little lady in my ear was telling me I only have 90 seconds left, so I need to wrap it up. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. You've been listening to Back Talk with Sharona. I'm your host, by the way. My name is Sharona. You can follow me out there in Twitter sphere at Sports by Sharona. Instagram, my phone is messed up. I've got to fix my phone as soon as we get off the phone. But my Instagram, I believe, is Sharona Sports. It was locked down. If I haven't opened it up, I'm going to do that. Happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will be back next week.
It's a little bit funny, this feeling inside. I'm not one of those who can easily hide.